Welcome to We Go Deep with Kat and Sarah. We are here again with Dr. Kathleen Perry and Dr. Sarah Joy O'Neill. Today we were talking about how we motivate ourselves. And Kathleen and I were discussing a couple different things before the podcast. So Kathleen, what comes to mind for you when I say about motivating ourselves or motivation in general?
I was, enjoying what we were sharing with each other about how we both similarly, but in our unique ways, in our, shall we call it, former way of being in the world and showing up as entrepreneurs and business people, that the come from was gotta motivate ourselves. And I think it is ubiquitous. Almost everybody I talk to in some way asks me that question, clients I'm talking about, actually. How do I get myself motivated to do this thing that I think I should do that I really don't want to do? Like there's some magic formula out there to how to motivate ourselves.
Yeah. And there's a lot of where we think we have to do things we don't want to do. Yeah. That's making me smile. Like, oh, that's so silly. Why would you do something you don't want to do?
Would you? I mean, would you ever do something that you didn't want to do?
I mean, I have. Less and less. Yeah. What comes to mind is how I used to market my business. The idea that the more is better. So I'd take out an ad in the paper, a Yellow Pages ad. It's dating myself. Doing lunch and learn talks, doing trade shows like holistic fairs, and the more you do, the better. And I remember getting exhausted and really burnt out because I had different things every weekend going on. And yes, you generate more clients the more people you talk to, but there was a lot of different, like, I don't like doing trade shows. Now, I have done some where I enjoyed it, and it was a specific focus. It was a bit of a different event. But yeah, just the idea that you have to do certain types of activity to get a certain outcome. Is that true?
Yeah. So you, at some level, knew that wasn't something you really wanted to be doing. But back in the old days, you somehow pulled up your bootstraps and went out there and did it, even though you didn't want to.
Yeah, and I think it comes to a fundamental, what you think life is about. And if life is happening from the outside in, and you have to get somewhere to be important in the world or to be a good person, then of course you need to act in a certain way, or your business needs to be a certain level of success. So then different activities might look like, well, I have to do that if I want to, but the flip is actually true. The 180 of life happens from from us outwards. And we're 100% deeply okay to start with, like no brokenness, no, like I've recently become fascinated with the depth of how not broken we are, which sounds really hilarious to like, because it's a negative. We're so completely awesome and amazing to start with. And so then the idea of doing things you don't want to do, even if they're small things, it just looks so silly because you can do whatever. Life is just, it's a game. It's fun. It's an adventure.
I love that. I love that. I think that, yeah, quite often the things that we feel require motivation are usually things that we don't want to do. And if we can really trust that we know that life, lives through us, as us, and moves us naturally in the direction of things that we do, our true, deep, inborn, pure desire, yeah, the wanting, then motivation isn't like a necessary thing.
Mm. But yeah. And from the perspective of who we are as the creative force of the universe, I don't think motivation exists.
No. What's coming to mind is the difference of paddling your in a canoe and you're paddling upstream, or you turn the canoe around and you just let the current take you downstream.
Mm-hmm. Or yeah, the feeling between the two, motivating yourself to do something versus moving with life, being inspired. To me, the second one, you might be doing a very similar action, but the feeling of being inspired is often it's watching yourself do something. Go look at this, look what I'm doing. Oh, I didn't expect I'd be doing this. Or yeah, it's a completely different feeling. You just start doing something rather than gearing up to it. Okay.
Yeah, I love that word, inspiration. But I can imagine that somebody listening, because I almost went there. Well, how do I get inspired? Where does what do I need to do to find that spark? It's there, if we're thinking about why it's not there, if the brain is doing all this chattering, like trying to figure that one out, how turning it into a how to, instead of just quieting that, that chattering mind, and inspiration will come.
Yeah, there's the trust and trusting the trusting of ourselves, the trusting that we are everything that we want to be. We are, just period. And inspiration will arise. There's a trust in that. But what, as you were talking, what came to mind was, well, get quiet and go within and see what comes up. And yeah, it's like taking a pause and then seeing what comes through.
Yeah. And then there's, really and truthfully, where the rubber meets the road. because both of, we shared with one another before we hit record that in many domains, both of us have happened to feel that, allowing life to just live us has appeared to be easier than in the domain of business. There's still a little stickiness around there for me. Yeah, but there's this thing that I really should be doing, really needs to get done. And yet, if it's true in one domain of life, it has to be true everywhere. So I think for me, my practice and business and entrepreneurship, there was just this deep ingrained groove in my brain, this habitual way of being, of seeing myself, and then of doing business a certain way, that I'm shedding that. It's dissolving. I'm letting go of that. But like you spoke of, there's almost this new muscle developing, which isn't an effortful muscle, not like going to the gym and lifting those heavy weights that you do. The muscle really is simple, really, I think, as the muscle of deep trust.
Hmm.
And I haven't exercised that deep trust of universal intelligence to own and operate my practice and my business as me. But every time I get a little glimpse of it, I'm like, oh yes, please, more of that. It feels so good.
Yeah, it's so much easier. I had mentioned how I was coming out of the habit of how I used to work, and more like a traditional style of motivating oneself. And like the getting, rah, 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 motivated and doing more action, more action, more action. Okay, if you can do this many sales calls, do 10 times that many sales calls. That sort of idea. Coming out of that habit, I'm really noticing when I do that unconsciously, the habit of it, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I get tired.
Right.
And then I take a pause and other stuff starts to happen. Like, oh, well, I could do these other things. Okay.
Mhm. I think also what's just occurring to me right now is that creativity and the infinite possibilities in the realm of business, like anytime I'm motivating myself to try to do something, like there's none of that happening.
Mm.
That it doesn't appear to me. It doesn't appear to me that I'm being moved by creativity, that inspiration is happening. I don't think those two things can happen at the same time. So if one can let go of the need to get a should done via motivation and kicking myself in the rear end, then that allows for the space for something that I haven't even imagined of. I was thinking about it when you're talking about, marketing your business or sales calls. Like I've had clients come to me, and I know you have as well, from seemingly out of nowhere. It just appeared out of thin air because we were in that space of just being, of
Mhm.
being love, of being pure potential, of being a coach or a healer that wants to express that. And then somehow, without our having to to steer the canoe, right? We go with the flow, and our paths cross. I mean, it's not that we're not doing something. It's not that we're not making phone calls, or it's not that we're not, going to marketing events or wandering around at trade shows, but the come from is that place of curiosity and openness and availability, without having to just muscle up and get ourselves motivated to go do this thing that we think is the path to from here to there. Like, we got to get somewhere. We got to be that successful person, that successful business person. No, we already are that.
Yeah. It's always interesting what shows up when you're not trying to be successful.
Yes. Something that sometimes kind of looks like success.
Yes, I know. As you were talking, I was thinking the times where I would have, maybe considered I had the most quote unquote success was when I wasn't trying to have success. And almost it can feel paradoxical. And yeah, where you just really truly say, F it. And you said the word availability. I think, yeah, when you're available for the creativity of the universe to come through, then it does. And when you're so busy doing what you think you need to do, it's almost like you're holding it back, like you're creating a dam. You're like, no, I don't want all that great stuff. I'm gonna do, what I think is best. And then when
Yeah.
you're tired of doing that, the dam breaks. It all comes in.
I mean, Sarah, I just feel my body relaxing because I know all those years of motivating and forcing myself to do a lot of things that I really didn't really want to do. It is exhausting. It is mentally and physically, and even to me on a spiritual level, it creates this degree of angst that just weighs heavily. I got to the point where it's like, I can't do it that way anymore. I took 18 months off. Yes, a lot of other circumstances and other domains of my life were requiring that I take some time. But when it came to that point where I thought, oh, I'm ready to engage in a practice again, I haven't been able to do it the old way. I mean, I catch myself thinking that I should be, but when I attempt to write down names and make sales calls, I'm just like frozen. I can't dial the number. I'm just like, I can't literally, it's like I can't step one foot in front of the other in that direction anymore. And it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable because I can't do it the old way. And the new way is still, I don't know how to describe it. It's still not as familiar, I guess. So I find, a little voice in my head creeping up and going, but you could, instead, but I can't. So that's kind of good. But yeah, in this it's almost like one foot in two different worlds, and just being in this space of, I can taste the new way. And I have had many tastes of it. and I'm exhausted by the old way. So not going back. But here I am living in the unknown, and it's beautiful. And it's unsettling sometimes because we want to know.
Yeah. You said the taste of I think the new way. When you said that, I felt like the old way of overthinking, of motivating, it tastes like ashes. It has like it's gone off. And the new and fresh, yeah, it's fresh, it's new. And for some, yeah. So I'm not sure. It's funny. I'm at a loss for words just now, so that's great.
Well, it's not great for a podcast
I
necessarily.
know.
But it sure is a great way to be.
It's all of a sudden that old way feels like I've been eating cigarette ashes out of an ashtray, and I can smell it and taste it so strongly, like right now. And it's like, why would I ever do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways, Sarah, didn't it look, I mean, it looked like it worked, right? I mean, that's where I think someone listening might go, but it does work at the cost of what? At the cost of, for me, relationships, my physical health, like all those things, and to a level that I probably, if I was really honest about it, were pretty detrimental, even though I got some outcomes. But who knows what outcomes are possible by being led by life, by being led by a greater intelligence. Like, how could something even bigger and yet to be even imagined by our little pea brains, and I've seen that. I'm trying to recall an example, and nothing's coming to mind maybe for you, but something where you just take a back seat or get out of the way, or just allow that deeper intelligence to come through. And then what unfolds is way bigger and more beautiful than anything we, as our beautiful little human selves could have created on our own.
Yeah. It's looking like how wonderful is life that we can be quote unquote successful doing such a crappy, shitty way of doing it. Like you were talking at what cost, and it's so exhausting, and it tastes like cigarette ashes. And yet we think we're successful in that mode, or in that way of the cultural way of success. And how wonderful is life that crappiest way of being gets you seemingly somewhere. And so if you actually start working with your inspiration and with the creativity and the life force of the universe, how much more awesome is that going to be?
And everybody's experienced it, in little ways.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps not in the domain of work, but everyone, as they're listening, I'm sure, can think of examples of that for themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else around this? I feel like that's a wrap.
You took the words out of my mouth, and I don't know, I don't remember ever saying that. Well, I don't think you took the words, the same words occurred to us in the same moment. Because seconds before you said that, I was like, I think that's a wrap. Whatever
Oh,
that means.
great. Thank you for the wrap there, Kathleen. And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.